I already know this is going to be a chunky one. Here goes nothing. A couple days ago, I asked y'all what kind of video you would like me to release this weekend. Unsurprisingly, the majority of you said an update on the yandere dev situation. The other 23% of you gave me really good suggestions for other videos, which I will hopefully release in the near future. But your wishes are always my command, so for today, we're here with a yandere dev video. However, the catch is that this video isn't necessarily about our favorite boy Alex. I know I kinda hinted at this in some of my replies to your comments because I'm a huge tease and can't keep any of you in the dark for the life of me, but this video isn't solely on yandere dev. As a matter of fact, yandere dev isn't even the main focus of this video. No. This video is about his famed and prestigious rival, Dr. Apeis, the developer of Love Letter and the same person I said was a godsend at the end of my last video. You know, because I thought they were so cool for attempting to create a game with a frame rate higher than 4 per second. And can you believe that the frame rate is not absolute trash? Like, imagine having a frame rate over 4 per second. Imagine! This Dr. Apeis person is a godsend. Yeah, given the title of this video, that sentiment seems a little contradictory, don't you think? Let's get into that, shall we? Hi guys, gals, gays, and mays, it's Omnia, and I'm coming at you with one final banger before I get absolutely wrecked by online college classes. We love to hear it. Drop a like to indicate your love and support. I need all the empathy I can get. My personal struggles aside, today we're going to be talking about Dr. Apeis, the developer that seemingly appeared out of nowhere to rival Alex or yandere dev in creating a yandere-esque type game. Let's discuss. First things first, we're going to try our best not to misgender anyone in this video, so right off the bat, I want to mention that Dr. Apeis is non-binary, so we're referring to them with they/them pronouns. You know how it be in this household, let's get into it. So Dr. Apeis is a developer that has recently gained some popularity after coming out with a yandere simulator fan game called Lovesick. They uploaded a couple of videos to their YouTube channel titled Lovesick Announcement Trailer and Lovesick Corridor Test, which were meant to advertise and promote their fan game. And yes, initially Lovesick was meant to be a fan game to yandere simulator. It wasn't originally meant to be a game that rivaled Alex's game at all. Here's what Cameron, F305, a volunteer for yandere dev who reached out to Dr. Apeis about Lovesick, had to say in his video titled The Truth About Dr. Apeis, The Truth Behind Love Letter.
Once Dr. Apeis uploaded this yandere simulator revamped, we were all quite confused as volunteers. These are our assets, how is he claiming that he made all this in 2 weeks? I decided to talk to Dr. Apeis myself. It became a conversation I didn't expect it. We almost immediately got on a Discord call and talked things through. I talked about how I was concerned about my assets, and then he started to, say stuff like, yeah, I really don't like all this harassment towards yandere dev. I'm like, wait, what? Aren't you kind of trying to rival him right now? Turns out I was completely wrong about that. He was just trying to make a fan game.
Ooh, that was a good juicy burp. So after Cameron F305, who once again, keep in mind, is a volunteer for yandere dev, reached out to Dr. Apeis, Dr. Apeis began to express some regrets and wanted to apologize to Cameron and the rest of yandere dev's team for stealing the assets of yandere simulator. As I said in my last video, we all know that yandere dev has stolen assets for yandere simulator himself. A good example of this that I mentioned was Doug Clayton's grass texture. However, I can't deny that there are certainly some assets made by yandere dev's volunteers like Cameron that were made specifically for the yandere simulator game. As of right now, I'm really unsure about the claim that 99% of the game is original assets or that the majority of the game is filled with assets meant exclusively for yandere simulator. Like, sure, we've already established a good chunk of the assets in yandere simulator is purchasable on the Unity store app, so you can't really quote-unquote steal that. Those are universally accessible things, and like I said, I'm sure his volunteers made assets exclusively for the game too. However, considering that certain textures made by artists who specifically stated that they do not want to be associated with the game are still present in the game, someone reached out to Doug directly and asked him if he gave yandere dev permission to use his grass textures, or if he credited him at all. Doug said, clear as day, please immediately remove my work, as I would like nothing to do with this project, and it is a copyright infringement violation to use my work without my permission. And then, later on, yandere dev changed the grass texture ever so slightly, to which the same person reached out to Doug again and asked if he gave yandere dev permission to edit or alter his grass texture, to which Doug responded, I told him to remove my work as I didn't want it associated with his game, and it looks like he did a very poor job of modifying it to hide the watermark. I'm really skeptical of the idea that the majority of the assets are indeed Alex's. I do think it's possible that some of the assets are indeed fully Yon Sims, but I also think it's a stretch to say a majority. However, if you want a different opinion on the matter, Cameron talks a little bit about this in his own video, which I'll link below. But I digress. Dr. apeis expressed that they are sorry for using the Yandere simulator assets and claiming it as their own, which is pretty fine and dandy. Dr. apeis actually goes so far as to collaborate with Cameron to create an apology video for stealing the volunteers' assets and releases it on their YouTube channel. Obviously, the video has since been deleted because Dr. apeis has kind of retracted their apology, I guess, but here's what Cameron had to say about it.
So we talked things through, and then he came to the notion that he wanted to apologize because of how us volunteers felt, and especially how yandere felt. Me and him talked through what the apology video would look like on his channel. I gave him some things to say, he had his own ideas, we kind of worked together on it. And then once I saw it, I gave him the okay to use my music in it.
After the apology video went up, yandere, Dr. apeis, and Cameron actually kinda were on good terms for a little bit. However, this is where the whole suicide bait situation happened. A couple of you guys commented on my last video about how I brushed over that whole thing or just didn't mention it to begin with. No, I didn't forget about it. I purposefully didn't include it because considering the fact that I have covered a certain someone in the past who suicide baited specifically as a tactic to exert emotional abuse onto their victims, I never once considered the language yandere used in that particular text to be a flat-out, outright suicide bait. Let's just read the text together and explain this real quick. Quote, the actual drama started a while ago, but I don't feel like talking about that. If you are aware that your project is having so many destructive consequences on another person's life, how can you possibly continue? Don't you see how harmful and damaging this is for me? If the cause of Yandere Simulator was ending a person's life, I'd cancel development. End quote. Why am I burping always? Now, I see where a lot of people were going with this, thinking yandere was threatening game over, but if we put this up next to things Dolly would say to their friends, I think there's a stark difference. Sure, you could probably argue that this alludes to endgame, like, oh, he said ending a person's life, suicide baity. But to me, there's plenty of different ways a person's life could figuratively end. For example, the thing you work 6 years on and pour all your time and energy into being snatched away from you in 2 weeks, that could metaphorically end your life. I don't know, maybe I'm just an overdramatic Leo moon constantly crying about how my life is over because of one minor inconvenience, but I didn't see this as a threat. Sure, I will agree that the wording is poor, and depending on your perspective or experience with messages like this, you could see it in a multitude of different ways. Personally, with my super extra over-the-top self, I knew yandere dev was talking about his career ending because he often associates his career as a game dev to his life as a whole, but a lot of other people saw it in a completely different light, and that's totally fine. Here's what yandere dev had to say, of course.
Side note, and I need to mention this, I reached out to yandere for a comment on the whole suicide baiting situation and his wording choice. He said this. My question was, when you said, quote unquote, you're ending my life to Dr. apeis, you meant financially / in the long run, correct? yandere says, I meant you're wrecking what I've spent a large portion of my life working on, but I was trying to get my thoughts out quickly, so I typed out a very condensed sentence. I agree that I chose my words poorly, but I was absolutely not attempting to evoke the idea of suicide.
Like I said, shitty word choice. But yeah, I just wanted to clarify that I didn't mention any of this in my first video because I didn't personally see it as a suicide bait to begin with. That being said, I still think it's guilt trippy as hell, and I think that that's whack, but what's really new? I already made a whole video on how Alex is whack. Check it out in the card, I guess. After yandere dev pulled that whole, wow, your fan game is ending my life / career because you falsely advertised it as a game you can create in 2 weeks when in reality a lot of the assets are stolen from me and my volunteer team stunt, Dr. apeis leaked those DMs to their moderator team on Discord, which resulted in one of Dr. apeis' moderators leaking that DM to the public. Anyway, shit gets real messy from here on out because yandere dev got really mad that people started accusing him of being a suicide baiter when that wasn't his intention, and essentially the drama spiraled out of control because yandere dev no longer trusted Dr. apeis with their personal DMs. Dr. apeis took down the apology video and rebranded Lovesick as a fan game into a game independent of Yandere Simulator, renaming it Love Letter, My True Feelings, and ending their friendship with Cameron F305. Just scrumdiddlyumptious, don't you think? Now, all of that information was just meant to preface the real criticism of Dr. apeis. As extensive as this was, I felt that it was all necessary. If you want even more context, check out Cameron's video, it's linked below. But let's think about the situation rationally for a second. If you're anything like me, you probably only hopped on the Dr. Apeis bandwagon because you wanted a good yandere game with a pristine frame rate, faster development time, and you wanted to bank on a game that would come out looking good, feeling good, and being successful. Considering Alex's history, you thought it might be a better idea to jump ship and ride with Dr. Apeis, right? That's what I thought too, until Shortcake reached out to me on Twitter and let me know the big boy news. First of all, I just want to say right off the bat that Shortcake is such an incredibly sweet person, and I'm really glad she reached out to me. She said, "Hey friend, love your videos. I saw your Yandev needs to be stopped video, and I noted you mentioned Love Letter and Dr. Apeis. I was once an admin of their server as well as creator of the X-main character Bo-chan. Love Letter and Dr. Apeis are going down the same path as Yandev, and myself as well as many ex-volunteers have come out on how Dr. Apeis and the management has treated them and others. This one singular DM has led me to a multitude of other creators and YouTubers like Stanpie, the previous Bo-kun voice actor, and the Love Letter #OurTrueFeelings Twitter account, which recounts the experiences of ex-volunteers on the Love Letter team. Within the course of a month, there's definitely been a lot of drama and lies that have happened within the Love Letter management team. For one, Dr. Apeis has lied about their identity in the past. Bo-chan talked a little bit about this in our interview, which I'll begin right here. The first question I asked was, introduce yourself. Who are you and how are you involved with the Love Letter team? She said, hello, I'm Shortcake. I'm the creator and designer of Bo-chan, and I was once a volunteer of Love Letter as well as admin of the now unofficial Love Letter server. The second question I asked was, why did you leave the team? What are some of the biggest problems with the team that led you to leave in the first place? She said, I was kicked off the team by showing Cameron screenshots of Apeis and the team rating Cameron's videos as well as mass disliking and rating his comment section, as Apeis, from what I know, has a massive grudge against Cameron. I also accidentally exposed Apeis of being Narwhals Are Falling, the creator of a cancelled Sim game, Heartbreak. While I was a part of the raid, I apologized to Cameron personally. So, to break this answer down, Dr. Apeis and his team rated Cameron F305's video, The Truth About Dr. Apeis, which is why the like to dislike ratio is currently hidden, and spammed it with hate comments and dislikes, mainly because Dr. Apeis had a falling out with Cameron after the whole suicide baiting situation. Also, I feel like it might be important to note, if you haven't noticed already, Cameron is a minor. I mean, it's weird regardless to demand your team to mass dislike a video that criticizes you, but Cameron is younger than Dr. Apeis. Probably not by a lot, because there's a lot of speculation that Dr. Apeis is either 18 or 19, but still. I thought they prided themselves on being better than Alex. Go code instead of demanding your team to go dislike a minor's video, goddamn. The second half of Shortcake's answer was about the Narwhals Are Falling situation. Essentially, a while ago, this anonymous creator called Narwhals Are Falling created a yandere simulator game called Heartbreak, which inevitably failed because the creator was involved with drama and was incapable of taking constructive criticism. Anyways, Dr. Apeis is Narwhals Are Falling, but lied multiple times in the past and tried to manipulate people into believing they weren't narwhals, and it was a big huge mess that I don't feel bothered getting into right now. But they recently admitted on their Twitter that they are indeed narwhals and finally gave up the lies, which is a good sign. I don't think it's a bad thing to want to hide a previous persona that was associated with a failed game in order to be better now, but you don't have to repeatedly lie to your audience until someone else reveals it for you. Transparency is necessary in building trust. In addition, Stanpie, who was an ex-volunteer and Bo-kun's previous voice actor, also mentioned how Dr. Apeis kept a person who was accused of sexually harassing others on the team and just generally made people uncomfortable remain a part of the Love Letter staff. I don't think I have enough time to cover that in this particular video, as both my speed paint and my patience is not long enough to withstand that information, but I will be linking Stanpie and any other resources that prove to be helpful in exposing the problems that Dr. Apeis and the Love Letter team has below. So as of right now, to sum up the main issues with Dr. Apeis. 1. They've lied repeatedly about being Narwhals Is Falling. 2. They've kept a problematic person on the team when many people have come forward and said that this particular person makes them uncomfortable and they would rather not have him there. 3. They've lied about terminating said person from the team, but didn't actually, because said person was still working on the Love Letter team under wraps. 4. They've used their team to raid Cameron's commentary video with dislikes and harassment. And lastly, 5. There is also some drama between Shortcake and Dr. Apeis in regards to who created Bo-chan, who owns Bo-chan's design, etc. Once again, I'll link all this stuff below because I'm really not trying to pull a 30-minute video. Though, if you would appreciate a deeper dive into the specifics of this drama in a part 2, drop a like, drop a comment, drop a sub, just let me know if that's something you're interested in. The third question I asked Shortcake was, how do you feel about Love Letter now? Do you anticipate it being better than Yonsim? Do you think it will be released before Yonsim? Or do you think it will flop? She said, I honestly feel bad for LL. I had high hopes for the game, but considering how apeis and management is running things, my hope has completely gone. If it does release, I can't say whenever it will flop or not, but I know it'll gain popularity due to the fanbase consisting of people who dislike Yonsim. The fourth question I asked was, do you plan on doing anything with Bochan? If you are and you're willing to disclose, what? How do you feel about fan art of Bochan in relation to the game? She responded with, I do have plans for Bochan, yes, though I can't say too much. I still love and cherish all the fan art that people have drawn of Bochan. I have a ton saved on my phone. While I don't wish for Bochan to be related to LL anymore, I still feel pure joy of people using their artistic talents to draw her. So, y'all keep pumping out that fan art. The last question I wanted to ask her was, what do you want viewers or supporters of the Love Letter team / game / developer to know? What are your main takeaways? She said, my main takeaways are that you please reevaluate who you are supporting. Please read all ex-volunteers, ex-fans, and ex-staff statements of how management and apeis has treated them. If you want to continue supporting them, I can't stop you, but please keep everything in mind. That was my interview with Bochan. Like I said, I could probably go much more in depth with how I feel about Dr. Apeis in relation to Yandere dev. I could talk about the specifics of the drama with Dr. Apeis and Zaid, or the staff member accused of sexual harassment that no one wanted around anymore. I could detail the situation with Bochan and her copyrighted design. I could talk about the details of how Stampai, Cameron, and Shortcake feel about all of this. I could even tell you my hot takes on why I think this yandere simulator genre seems to be so cursed in a second or third part or something. Got you there, didn't I? Big thanks to my favorite people, omnia and Holographics, for supporting my little corner of the internet. You both keep me fed. Thank you to Shayton_Rizzy for drawing this wonderful fan art. Thank you all so much for everything. You know how it is. Comment what you think about the situation. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!